Hello and welcome to another episode of Heat Check. So much happening around the world for our Aussies in hoops. We're here to break it all down for you. My name's Joel Peterson. His name's Michael Houben. He's here, there and everywhere across everything that's happening in the world of basketball. Good to see you, Mick.
Good to see you too.
There is so much happening, of course. We're sort of into the real thick of the off-season now as far as NBL is concerned. We've got Opals and Boomers stuff coming up. We've got championships being won all over the place. So there is plenty of stuff to touch on. And there's some interesting moves in terms of off-season, not only for players, but for coaches as well. Justin Tatum, he signed with Pelita Jaya in Jakarta in Indonesia. Now, this isn't something you see every day.
It's very unusual. We're used to, obviously, players going in the off-season and, finding gigs. Not so common for coaches. We see coaches and players go to Asia, but Indonesia is a little bit more obscure. I imagine, there's some little bag being handed out to Justin to go to such an obscure league. But rest easy, Hawks fans. It's only a 10-game season or 10-game stint for Justin, and he'll be back, so all good.
So 10 games, maybe plus the postseason, given that they make it. So based in Jakarta, this particular team, and clearly, coaches need reps too.
Yeah, that's right. It's a totally different setting, a new experience. Justin, for all the success he's had in the NBL, hasn't had a lot of head coaching reps around the world. So this will be a new experience for him and some stuff that he can take back to the NBL.
And opportunistic from then to go and grab a man who's in demand and just coming off some good things indeed. We've been following the progress of Mitch Creek this off-season. He's been here, there and everywhere as always. He's recently been playing in the, and I'm going to just check the notes to get this right, the Star Street Battle based in Chengdu in China. Derek Rose was recently at this event and plying his trade as well, so continuing to get his reps in too.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on here, but it's really cool to see. Mitch is playing everywhere but the NBL at this point, and a totally different setting for him. Yeah, just cool to see him out on the court.
And he's been doing some nice things. I think his team went pretty well in this particular event, and he was involved in plenty of highlights on social media too. So we know that Mitch Creek is a busy man, and he is always in demand. That's the other thing, that yes, he's looking for the opportunities, but he gets them.
Yeah, that's right. And as we said, every single continent he goes, he seems to translate. So there's a market for him all across the globe, including the NBL. Be very interesting to see where he goes next.
So that's a bit of a watch this space to see exactly where Mitch Creek ends up over the next little while. We've also been following the Harry Froling story, which is one of the best stories in Australian basketball at the moment. He's making his return to the court with Taranaki in the NZNBL, putting up really good numbers. So he's 10th in the league in scoring, he's 4th in the league in rebounds. So that sort of early season blitz we saw from has continued.
He's been fantastic, and what a win enough just to have him out on the court. That's been sensational, but to see that he's getting NBL interest already, extremely exciting for Harry. It goes to show the form that he's playing in. We know he's so skilled and so big, but also the scarcity of local bigs in the NBL right now. His ability to come in at 6'10", 6'11", shoot the three from outside, that's a really rare skill set.
Do you think he fits anywhere in particular, or is there a particular sort of system that a player like him works in?
Yeah, I think he might want to go somewhere where there's a little bit of opportunity, maybe a Cairns or one of those smaller market teams where there is some potential to play. But I think any team that's looking at him, they're probably having their contingencies saying, we like what we're seeing. We're going to wait to see if you can get him better conditioning, better form. But in terms of an 11th or 12th guy, it's a free hit on a proven talent.
Yeah, it's just great to see him back and doing his thing as well. So we hope that there's some more steps in that Harry Froling journey, that is for sure. It's championship winning season over in Europe, and a couple of our Aussie women have been in very, very good form indeed. Steph Reid has just won the Hungarian League Championship with Sopron, a big part of their season, so put up some really big numbers, 14 points in the game clinching, or the championship clinching game 5. Well, we know what she can do from her Opals and her WNBL tenure, and it's great to seeing her doing it overseas.
Steph Reid is one of my favourite female hoopers. She has that sort of shiftiness to her game. She plays with a lot of flair at the point guard position, and I think Hungarian fans would probably agree after this season. She had 14 points in the decisive game. She also led that team in assists across the season as well. We get to see her really soon next month in the Trans-Tasman Games as well for the Opals.
Yeah, absolutely we do. So they're coming up right around the corner. Then we get to see her in the NBL 1 with Diamond Valley alongside Abby Ellis and Lara McSpadden. So it's great to have that talent coming back and plying their trade in our domestic competitions. One of my favourite women's basketballers, Ezi Magbegor. I think that's pretty universal around Australian hoops as well. Of course, star of the Opals and the WNBA. She's just won a title in the Czech Republic with Prague. The numbers behind this and their history of success, Mick, is pretty staggering.
Yeah, look, Ezi has been fantastic. She had 19 points in Game 2. She's been a big factor for their success. But the more you look into the numbers, the less surprising it is that they pulled this one out. Over the regular season, 18-0. They didn't lose a game in finals either, and this was their 15th consecutive championship.
That's pretty wild. And just on the colours, it kind of looks like she's playing in the Opals kit there too, which I love. I sort of had to double take when I saw some of the highlights of Ezi going, is she playing for Prague or is she playing for Australia?
Yeah, maybe she's just carried over the same uniform, saves a bit of washing.
I mean, it works. So whatever you want to go with Ezi, we love seeing anything green and gold related when it comes to Ezi Magbegor, and well done to her and Steph on winning championships. And of course, Ezi now headed to the WNBA for training camp with the Seattle Storm as well. So plenty of good things happening in her world in the not too distant future. Of course, the NBA season has wrapped up for some of our Aussies. Still got a couple in action over there too. We've talked about those over the last couple of weeks. But Dyson Daniels and Josh Giddey, they've been back in Australia. They wasted no time getting straight to some local hoops and getting to the NBL 1.
That's right. Some well-deserved R&R for these guys. They had massive years and they're back in Melbourne, just sort of taking it easy. We see Dyson down here at Nunawading in the graveyard. We've seen Josh Giddey, you know, he's going to be around friends and family at those Melbourne Tigers games. Just cool to see them supporting local hoops.
Got some issues with that photo, Dyson. That is not a Bendigo Braves jersey. It's very disappointing. I don't know what's happening there, but it's good to see them. It's good. Just stop showing me that Nunawading jersey with our man in it. Anyway, it's great to see them back, and I mean, you know, it clearly shows that this level means a lot to them, and it's a big part of their basketball journey, and to see them back at games is great.
They clearly haven't forgotten where they've came from. Maybe Dyson a little bit. I know you can speak to that one, but, you know, really good to see them, you know, amongst their friends, guys they grew up with, supporting and, you know, being a part of the local scene. Yeah,
absolutely. Some breaking news that's just come across our desk in the last little while as well regarding NBA draft and a couple of NBL prospects going into that process. This man, the Brisbane Bullets' next star, Rocco Zikarsky, has said he is all in for the NBA draft. Of course, 2 years here in the NBL. This is going to be an interesting watch to see exactly where he ends up.
It is really intriguing, right? Because Rocco was pretty quiet in his couple of seasons with Brisbane. We've always known the potential that he possesses at 7'3", the wingspan. You know, there is limitless upside to Rocco. But we have to remember that even though he struggled in the NBL, the NBA and the draft in particular, it's all about potential. So I think Rocco, and he said he's 100% in on this draft, it's all about attacking those workouts, showing the upside, showing the tools that he has, because we've seen the clips. He can shoot a little bit. There's a lot of talent there. You know, all it needs is one team to sort of take a punt on him, say, we want to invest in this guy, and Rocco could see himself drafted. And
then one of our favourites here on this program, I know we share a bit of mutual admiration for this man, Ben Henschel. Great season with the Perth Wildcats. Of course, he spent 2 years there as well. Limited opportunities in year one, heaps of opportunity in year two. He's also declaring for the draft.
Yeah, this one's totally green. We just saw it on the Twitterverse before we hopped on, and it's hard to work out exactly what Ben's situation is here. We saw him on the early entry list. That suggests he, you know, might have the capacity to pull out prior to that June 15th date, where he can reassess his options. We know that Ben's rumoured to be assessing all options, you know, if he doesn't enter this draft, you know, potentially college, potentially back to Perth. We'll have to see what he does.
It's going to be, again, really interesting to see exactly where he ends up. So best of luck to those two chancing their arm at the NBA draft. A little bit closer to home, some big news in the WNBL over the last couple of weeks. A new CBA has been announced between the WNBL, the Australian Basketball Players Association as well. So they've hit a 4-year agreement for the next CBA. A historic one. Some really good stuff to come out of this. We'll give you our take on it in a second, but here's Jenny Sager on what it means for the league.
Really excited to be able to offer athletes a bit more security, I'd say, and let them really focus on the game itself and what it takes to succeed in the game. So the CBA will be moving now to 4 years instead of yearly, which I think is a really big win for everyone.
So there you go. That's what it means as far as the league is concerned. And I guess the cliff notes here, Mick, a few really big things. So minimum wage increases by more than 104% over the length of the deal. The salary cap floor comes up to that sort of 723,000 mark. Good news for DPs, good news for those minimum level players. And that's probably the thing that a lot of these discussions can make the difference, right? Especially in the women's competition where players have had to work alongside basketball potentially in the past. This is a really big step forward.
An absolute game changer. We knew good things were coming when Sager and co took over, but I'm looking at this minimum wage in particular, up 104%. They're trying to hit the pro rata of the NBL minimum salary as well. And, for that to go up, I think it's going to go to above 46,000 for minimum salary. That can be the difference between, young women attacking this league, trying to carve their niche out as a professional sports person. Being able to have that sort of security, which Jenny spoke about, is so massive. And
it just makes you a league of choice. It makes it so much easier for players to commit to your competition and get the absolute best out of themselves if they don't have to necessarily worry as much about whatever else they're doing in their life. So kudos to the ABPA and also to the WNBL for the work that they've done to get that 4-year deal. And it's been roundly sort of supported by players, as you can imagine. So clearly that's good news for the league.
Yeah, it's trending in the right direction. It's so exciting to see. And we know, the talent's there. That's the most important thing. That's the foundation. But all these things coming through, it's going to mean wonders for all our talent.
Yeah, really exciting times for the WNBL. We'll keep a close eye on that space in the coming months. Another one we're going to keep a close eye on, Mick, and we have been over the off-season, is Parker Jackson-Cartwright. Now, if you had have asked me a couple of months ago, is Parker Jackson-Cartwright going to return to the New Zealand Breakers, I reckon you would have got a fairly long price that he would. But now things have changed. Obviously, new management, new ownership there. He's been playing well with Raitas Vilnius over in Lithuania as well. It seems like maybe the cards are lining up that he could be returned to the Breakers.
I think this is really important for the Breakers. They're going to have to really invest in high-level imports this off-season. We know what Parker does. I remember, prior to sort of that middle point of the season, the turning point for the Breakers, for me, Parker Jackson-Cartwright was an MVP candidate. He was playing at such a high level. He suits this league so well. So it's really exciting to see that he's had that change of heart.
Well, I think they were 7-3. He was probably the MVP of the season at that point. So he's averaging the 9 points, 5 assists, about 19 minutes a game over there in Lithuania at the moment. And clearly there is a focus from this new Breakers organisation to not only bring more New Zealand players in, but try and build, some level of continuity around their program.
Their motto has been back to black, which, I think is fantastic. I love those black uniforms, but also it harkens back to an era of the Breakers where they were so successful. Think of 4 championships in 5 years, and that was built on a local Kiwi core. Now, it's very easy to win when that local core is the Kirk Pennies of the world, the Thomas Abercrombies, the Mika Vakonas. They brought back a lot of local talent, but I wouldn't say it's probably on the same level as previously. We're talking Ruben Tarangi, Isaiah Liafa, Taylor Britt, Rob Lowe, so many guys, but this is a longer process, and hopefully as they can rebuild that culture, they can start to bring back the Yanni Wetzels, the Finn Delaney's of the world.
Yeah, and as soon as Parker Jackson-Cartwright signs with your team, you become instantly relevant as far as viewership is concerned in the NBL. So hopefully, for their sake, we see him back in Breakers colours. Let's stay with the Little Big Man Society. Shout out to you, Damon Lowry. Jordan Crawford's an interesting name to watch as far as NBL teams go. So he's plying his trade in Turkey at the moment with Erikspor, putting up some big numbers there. Last time out, he had 30 points. Now, he doesn't have an NBL home. Sort of some talk around the place. Where do you think he could fit?
Yeah, there are so many spots. I think Jordan, and we've seen this, we know he can score. He's second in the league there. He's also averaging over 7.5 assists per game. We know he's that offensive spark plug. I don't think in terms of the NBL that people necessarily see him as that marquee import starting point guard anymore. It's just such a high benchmark to make in the NBL with the PJCs of the world that we have roaming around. But for a team that's a little bit more budget savvy, need a veteran presence, I think Cairns might be a team that makes a lot of sense for Jordan at that point guard position.
I heard budget savvy and I was thinking Cairns straight away. So you think he could be a good fit there?
Yeah, look, they just need a bit of firepower, and we know you put the ball in Jordan's hands, he's going to get things done either as a facilitator or a scorer. And as we said, he's in his mid-30s now. He has a bit of that veteran presence around the young guys as well.
And knows the league, so there's not that big adjustment coming in that there might be for others. So watch this space with Jordan Crawford. It's a weekly segment at this stage that we check in with Puerto Rico. It's one of our favourite places in the world out there in the Caribbean, the beautiful sun-soaked beaches, the Bacardi rum factory. I reckon there'd be some tours going on of that particular facility, Mick. Not by this man, though, because Nathan Sobey's been playing big minutes at the moment for Aguada, and he's playing really, really well.
He's really locked in. We spoke last week about Tyrell Harrison. He was the #1 scorer out of Australians and American imports from the NBL playing here. Nathan Sobey's #2, just under 18 points a game. And, you know, we know Nathan, his reputation maybe is a little bit divisive. There's a fine line that he runs between, you know, maybe a bit of an empty scorer and a real impact guy. But when I look at how he played under Josh King and then also how he's playing here, it really encourages positive things for next season.
Playing against Matt Mooney in that last game as well, had 18 points. So, yeah, the minutes have certainly been there for him. Jonah Bolden is over there at the moment as well with Arachabo. He's actually playing with Brandon Knight, another former NBA name. So there's these names that keep popping up in Puerto Rico. Jonah Bolden is a perplexing one in terms of where he might end up and his sort of NBL or broader future.
Let's be honest, it's a really unusual time for Jonah in his career. You know, I was a big fan of him coming up, playing for FMP, playing at UCLA in college, and then of course at the Philadelphia 76ers. But he had that hiatus. He was there for Sydney for a season. I thought there were some promising signs there, but it was a tough year for him at the Breakers. He regressed in many statistical categories, struggled to shoot the three ball. A lot of other areas were down. Right now in Puerto Rico, he's playing a little bit better. The three ball's back up. It's above 37% from outside. That's encouraging to see. But in terms of what this looks like going forward, I don't think he's coming back to the Breakers. Is there a market for him in the NBL? I'm not too sure. You know, we know that there's a role for him. He does a lot of things very well, but it's probably in a reserve capacity. Now, does that align with his salary demands? Does he look over to Asia that we know a lot of big men like to look at as well? That's the big question mark.
Yeah, he'll have some options. Exactly where he lands will be a fascinating prospect. Let's head over to the NZNBL. We briefly touched on this last week, Mick, that Sean McDonald was playing in Canterbury. We were talking about Taylor Britt. He kind of slid under the radar there for a couple of days. He's under the radar no more. The championship-winning jack jumper, he's going to be a big part of this Canterbury Rams team.
I think this is one of the guys I'm looking at least on paper. I think he could be a most improved candidate in the NBL next season. It should have been last season, but he was relegated to 9 games with injury. It's so great to see him back out on the court. 46 points across his first 2 games. He had 31 in the most recent one. And someone that will fit in perfectly in this Tassie unit. You think of their local core. You've got Sean McDonald at the 1. You've got Josh Bannon at the 4. Will Magnay at the 5. You load up with imports at that 2 and 3 position, they're looking pretty good. So
he played a big role in Tassie's championship 2 years ago. Of course, did Sean McDonald. Great to see him back out there fit and firing with the Canterbury Rams, and they've got good coaching. They've got an absolute bevy of talent over there. So you think they'll be in the firing line when it comes to the really important time of the season in that competition. A championship winner in the most recent NBL season is Wani Swaka-Labullock, who had a terrific season with the Illawarra Hawks. He's plying his trade over in the NZNBL at the moment with Hawke's Bay, and his numbers are really good too.
Just really solid. We know what Wani is as a player, right? He knocks down open threes, which he did at the best rate ever last season for Illawarra. He gets to the rim and, of course, plays sensational defence. You know, he's just been super solid, double digits in every game in New Zealand so far. He's just getting it done.
Absolutely, and the defence is always there, but when he's scoring, when he's shooting well, that's the real ceiling raiser in his game.
Absolutely, ceiling raiser is a great way to put it. I think Wani, we know his bread and butter. He can be that role player, but if he's able to use this setting to sort of expand his game off the dribble, a bit of that offensive volume, that's where he can really grow into an even bigger player.
So there's some great things happening for locals over in the NZNBL, in the NBL 1, so even a little bit closer to home again. Big Adelaide 36ers focus in our NBL 1 segment this week. Ben Christie, who's a young Adelaide product, spent his first year with the 36ers last season. He's contracted again for NBL 26. He's putting up some massive numbers at the moment for his home club, the Sturt Sabres.
Another guy I'm looking at, and I'm looking at this with a lens to his NBL role next season. Adelaide have a large portion of their locals locked away. They've got 2 bigs. They've got Isaac Humphries and they've got Ben Christie. He's someone who had a good college career over 3 years. He was on Adelaide's roster last season. Didn't do too much, but I think this is the year the 36ers are looking at him and seeing some of his performances. He had 29 and 16 last week. Fantastic output from him. His ability to shoot the 3, He has great touch on the block as well. I think those pieces are going to come together and he should see some minutes next season.
And they made a big deal of getting him. So he was sort of under the eyes of AFL scouts and that kind of thing. The 36ers were really pleased to sign him up. And we saw him have a couple of games this season. So hopefully there's big things in his near future. His new Adelaide teammate is Michael Harris, of course, formerly of the Perth Wildcats, formerly of the Mount Gambier Pioneers. He's now plying his trade with the Frankston Blues in the NBL 1 South. The three-point shot isn't quite there for him yet this season, but the numbers and the form line's still pretty good.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough of Michael Harris over the years to know he can shoot the three ball at a sensational rate. He doesn't mind just getting them up as well, so a little volatile in the volume right now. But Michael's a guy, I think it's just waiting for the right fit. We kind of know he's right on the edge of carving out his NBL role. He was on a Perth Wildcats team with a lot of guard depth. I think the opportunity just wasn't there for him on a consistent basis. And now he goes to Adelaide. We heard Matt Weston talk about how excited they were, his shooting ability to be able to come in. I think this might be the year for him. And
we've seen Nick Marshall do some good things in that squad in probably what might amount to being a similar role. So he'll be an interesting name to watch when it gets to NBL season. You mentioned shooting threes at a sensational rate. Gee whiz. I'll tell you who's doing that. And he's still doing it. Elijah Pepper. Another 50-piece in the NBL 1 West. So have a look at the numbers here. So Bryce Cotton, 44, 49, 40 and 59. 50, 51, 48 and 50 for Elijah Pepper. Last year in the NBL 1, 1,000 games and 1,000 players had lined up. 2 50-point games. Elijah Pepper has 3 in his first 4 outings. Credit to the Perth Wildcats for digging that stat up, but the numbers continue to boggle the mind.
I'm running out of things to say. Every single week, he keeps putting up lines like this, and I think I'm running out of superlatives the same way that his teammates are sort of running out of shots because he's getting them all himself.
The most staggering thing about this, so he's made another 7 threes. He just hasn't, hasn't had that really down shooting game yet.
Yeah.
The form is just, it's extraordinary.
Incredible. He's averaging just under 9 3-point makes a game. You sort of see these numbers and you think, is he just getting it all at the free throw line? No, he's just shooting at a sensational clip from outside. He's also averaging about 6.5 assists as well. So he is passing the rock. And yeah, it would be interesting to see how long he can keep this up for.
So 33 minutes, 50, 10, 5, 3 steals, 7 turnovers as well for Elijah. So the usage rate is off the charts, 23 free throw attempts. So what he can do this weekend is going to be fascinating. We're going to finish with a shout out to one of our favourites, Casper Ware, who of course is a long-time NBL player. And he's done great things here in Australian basketball. He's been playing in Russia for quite a while now, and he's just gone past 2,000 points as well. So someone who's had a great international career, and this is, for CSKA Moscow, it's a great sign.
Nice to see him find a second home after, he finished up in the NBL around 2021 or so. He's played 160 games there now. Someone who's in their mid-30s, had a sensational career, still shooting it really well. He's looking after his body. We know he's always in sensational shape, so big shout out to Casper.
I saw recently Derek Rucker just sort of positing him as maybe someone who could return to the NBL, so who knows? Who knows? It'd be great to see him back if it was to happen, though. Mick, that's all we've got. Plenty to get through this week. Next week we'll have Boomer stuff and all kinds of things happening. Transfer portal in the NCAA is really heating up as well. Great work by you as always. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, mate. Likewise.
Michael Houben from basketball.com.au. Thanks for your company. Join us next week for another episode of Heat Check.